So my presentation was about innovation in emerging markets and planning for success in emerging markets. And it really was full of case studies around stuff that you can do, cannot do, what people have got right, what have they got wrong, and what's the kind of mindset changes you need to really go about innovating in emerging markets. And the other interesting thing is it's not just about innovation in emerging markets, it's about a lot of stuff that's happening in the emerging markets is coming back into the developed markets as well. So I don't know how many of you have heard of Grameen Bank. So Grameen Bank, Mohammed Yunus set up a microfinance bank in Bangladesh with the full knowledge that people who were poor people didn't want tens of thousands of dollars of loans to start off a business. They required $5, $10, a $20 loan to buy a cow or to buy a sewing machine. And from that he developed Grameen Bank, which has, he lent to people who had no collateral. So absolutely zero collateral. So the bank had no guarantee these people were going to give money back. He's got a 99% return rate. Even Citibank or any of the American banks don't have a default rate as low as that. So what he went about it and said, why don't I lend to these women on pure trust and see what happens? And he actually invested his own money when he started off. And he said, I'll start this off as an experiment. And he saw their lives change dramatically because of that small infusion of capital. And that is how Grameen Bank was born. This has succeeded so well in there, and now they've rolled it out into the US, and they've launched in Queens. And they're finding that so many youths need this kind of small infusion of capital to start being on their own, just to get rid of unemployment. So look at Pampers, which launched in China. They launched with, again, very little understanding of the Chinese consumer. So they launched with a very cheap plasticky product, they took the US Pampers and really stripped it down, a very plastic feel, launched the Pampers. Not understanding there's something called Kaidanku in China, which means people wear these very interestingly shaped trousers, which are open at the back. So when a child's got to go, he just sits down and does it wherever he is or she is. So you don't wear diapers at all. So your competition is not other diapers, your competition is just literally open air, right? So they failed to make an impact. It was one of the biggest losses for P&G. I was in P&G at that time, working in India. I launched Pampers in India actually at that time. And it was a massive failure. And what they did was they went back, and I think if anything, there's one thing that you remember at the end of this presentation, it is the top line. It is delight, don't dilute. And I think that's what P&G understood, that you're not talking to people who do not want good quality products. Yes, they want cheap, price-effective products, but they have to be really good quality. Otherwise, they're not going to use you. So I think I've heard this so many times, that emerging markets equals really bad quality at cheap prices. And it is actually cheap prices with really good quality. When you really look at the bottom of the pyramid, it's about reinvention. It's not about taking the frills out of your product. So it's not saying that I have a fancy product and I'll maybe cut 10, 20%. You really have to figure out the entire equation. And the equation is not, as I said, cost plus profit margins equals price. It's what's price minus my profit margins, that's the cost. So when you give a brief to your engineers, it's not about shave off 10% of the cost. It's, I want a product at this price. I want it for 5 cents. And there's one industry that has really cracked the bottom of the pyramid code. That's the mobile phone industry. So you get all these people right now in multiple parts of the world using mobile phones. So mobile telephony used to cost about 60 cents a minute at that point of time. This is I'm talking about 11 years ago. 60 cents a minute. Penetration was pathetic, absolutely. No one could afford using a mobile phone. It was just too expensive to use. The industry started off in India. There's a guy called Sunil Mittal. He started a company called Airtel. And he said, airtime is so expensive because it is so expensive to set up these towers, set up the infrastructure. I've got to amortize all those costs and charge people for it. He's saying, why don't I look at just outsourcing the entire infrastructure? So I will not own anything. So he went to Siemens, he went to Nokia, he went to Ericsson and said, okay, you guys put up the infrastructure. It'll be on a pay-as-you-go basis. You guys will share in the profits, but there's no upfront payment. Bharti Airtel started that revolution. The cost went from 60 cents to currently it's less than 1 cent a minute. It costs 1.2 cents for video telephony in India right now. And what is the impact in terms of numbers? There's 6 billion people who have a mobile phone in the world right now. 6 billion. And if you just look at India, had 3.5 million mobile phones 11 years ago. There are 929 million mobile phones in India right now. So if you think there's no money at the bottom of the pyramid, think again. I think there is definitely fear, there's huge amount of risk. It's about managing that risk, and it's also about the organization and especially the top leaders having the entire know-how, and they should basically be open to investing for the long term. And I think that's the critical thing, that it's not a short-term effort. You've got to be in it for the long term. There are a lot of risks, there's a lot of unpredictability, and you need to budget for that. So whenever you're doing a P&L planning, you need to budget for a certain amount of uncertainty that's bound to happen. You'll have the Middle East, the Arab Spring coming up. You'll have riots coming up. You'll have food shortages coming up. So you need to plan for that. But the returns potentially are massive. And as you see, for a lot of these companies, the big chunk of their growth is coming in from these these emerging markets. So there is definite risk, there's no question, but the returns are immense. I think right now the risk is not looking at the emerging markets, because if you look at the US and Europe, you're pretty much flat or declining. So the risk is of doing nothing actually. That's a bigger risk for me. The next one I'm going to talk about is a completely different industry, which was bringing banking to the unbanked. And this is a massive segment. Even in the US right now, I don't remember the exact statistic, but more than 25 million people don't have a bank account or are completely underbanked because of various issues. So there's this company called Safaricom in Kenya. It's a telecom operator. And they were looking at this segment, and they wouldn't have started off looking at this segment from a banking point of view. But they looked at the numbers and they said, in Kenya, only 4 million people, so less than 10% of Kenyans had a bank account. Less than 10%. The rest didn't have access to a bank account at all. So forget credit cards, there was no bank account in there. Safaricom went in and said they understood that a lot of people needed to transfer money, because a lot of villagers who were coming into the city to work, so they would have to send money back to the villages. Or sometimes there's a person who runs a shop and she needs to go and buy stuff. So how does she go and buy stuff? She has to pay for it. How does she handle it? Physically, what they used to do was go to a bus driver, give him the money, said go to this bus stop and pick up stuff for me. On the way back, give me the stuff. But that is quite unreliable, and entire economy functioned on a completely informal basis. So they went in and said, we've got multiple mobile phone kiosks where you can buy a SIM card. And again, as I said, mobile phone penetration is massive. 90% of Kenyans have a mobile phone. So they said, if you go to one of our kiosks, and they have 17,000 of them, you give in $1, we will send you a text message, which is an electronic money. So you give us $1 cash, we'll text you $1. Of this, you can text 20 cents to your mom in the village. You can text 50 cents to the retailer there, and they can go there, give your code, and pick up the money from there. Go down, immerse yourself. As I said, even when I went down to do an emerging market entry strategy for India, I didn't go down and say, though I'm Indian, I didn't go down and say, I know this. I actually went in with a cultural guru. For 3 months, I just did cultural immersions to understand the psyche of the Indian consumer at that point of time, and then how our category and our products could make a difference to those people, and how we can have a story that resonates with the current Indian psyche. So similarly, any market you need to go to, first thing is really understand the consumer. And this is not just superficial usage and aptitude studies and just understanding and saying, oh yeah, 5% of people use toothpaste twice a day. It's about really engaging and understanding, going down to the consumers' homes, understanding how they live and how your products and categories can make a difference. Because without that understanding, you don't have a hope of success. So McDonald's went in and looked at the scenario in terms of how do you start off McDonald's in India. And they looked at traditional snacks which are consumed at 5 cents. They're eaten off the street, and that's what they were competing with. A lot of people, there's Muslims, there's Hindus. Muslims will not eat pork, Hindus will not eat beef, so you can't have both of those. Vegetarians will not eat in restaurants where you cook non-vegetarian and vegetarian food in the same utensils. So they're just pure 100% vegetarian. So they worked for 6 years to get their entire supply chain right, to get their offering right, and then figured out how to launch there. Do not assume that the global Western model is going to work in that market. And a lot of times what works in India might not work in China as well. So it's not you've got an emerging market success model. You really have to look at these markets clearly and see what will work in this particular market. Now obviously there will be synergies, but don't go in just assuming things. Go and test it out really well, and then before you launch. And the second thing is you have to keep track. Because a lot of times with all the research you've done, you're still going to get it wrong. and competitors in these places are very, very fast. And I think one of the big issues with multinationals is they completely ignore the power of the local competitors. And the local competitors are just so strong. So keep an eye out for what those guys are doing. Understand your consumer, delight, don't dilute, and you should be fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.